Hello there, it's been a while. In this video I made a 1/12 scale Dreadnought from Warhammer 40K and animated it. Now, some might say, why don't just buy it online and skip the making part? However, it's out of my budget, not to mention the shipping fees, and I mostly found 1/18 scale and wasn't really sure about the articulation. And since I dabbled in props making of this scale, I thought, why not just make it myself? And for those who are unfamiliar with the world of Warhammer 40K, the short version of what a Dreadnought is, well, imagine you got into a critical workplace injury and needed to be hooked onto a life support system, but your boss still needs you to work, so they gave you a pair of mechanical legs. But it's hard to protect yourself at this point, so they outfit you inside a heavy metal box with an industrial equipment and military artillery attached. Also, your upkeep is probably quite expensive, so occasionally they'll turn you off for years or so and turn you back on when you need it. And that's the short version. Fun, isn't it? Imagine exploiting an disabled and incapacitate veteran worker, even when on life support, still make them work. Potentially forever, regardless of industry. Truly an employer's dream worker. And that basically encapsulates the grim and brutality of the world of Warhammer 40K. Anyway, I decided to go with the Castroferum variant as there's a bunch of Dreadnought variants out there in the world of 40K. And also because that's the first Dreadnought I was introduced in the game Dawn of War. After a lot of experimentation by trial and error, I think I managed to put something together. So in this video, I won't be showing a step-by-step. Instead, I want to show you what I use, the ups and downs as well as the inside out of what I've assembled. First, let's talk about the 1/12 scale. If we're taking something like Borikun as a standard to a Space Marine, according to several images like this I found online, it's about this tall, and if we're taking this as a general height, a Space Marine with power armor is about this tall, and if we're taking this as a general height, a Space Marine with armor based on the mini is about this much. And when compared to a regular Dreadnought, specifically the Castroferum Dreadnought, it's about this much. And what I'm trying to say is, this thing is a thick and tall boy. However, by comparison, the Castroferum Dreadnought is one of the smallest one if we're talking about sheer scale, as I understand it. And before we talk about math and dimensions, let's talk about the looks, the aesthetics. And since this is a custom job, I'd figure I change some things up based on what I like about a Dreadnought. And because the Dreadnought is described as a walking tomb or an iron sarcophagus, I thought it'd be cool to have a subtle shape of a coffin with a more subtle angular feature to give it more character rather than just a traditional rectangle box. Since it's my first biggest puppet build, I plan to make it somewhat of a simple design. This means no special or complicated guns. A fortress box rather than a barrel of firepower. Where I choose it to give it complexity are the fingers, with all 5 fingers. All the standard Castroferum Dreadnought images that I found online has only about 4 fingers or no fingers at all. And since I really like the look of Power Fist in 40K and making all from scratch for this build, I went with an oversized Power Fist for this Dreadnought. Now the actual measurements is part guessing and a lot of math, as well as cross-reference with a lot of different sources and images. Since much of the fan and official art isn't always proportionally scaled precisely for the Dreadnoughts that I saw, I took the liberty and the freedom to make it look at least close enough. The Castroferum Dreadnought, generally speaking, has a very basic shape, which makes making the frame generally simple. So I put together a template for the boxy design. Then comes to the major articulation component. For the arm or shoulder part, I found this paper towel cardboard that I can use because it's in a rounded shape or cylindrical shape that's perfect for articulation. For the articulation in itself, I gave the fingers a hinge-like mechanic so that they can move relatively simple. And for the shoulders as well as the torso, I went with this. Basically the top of every generic plastic bottle. Since we always throw it away anyway, I figured this is a good way to recycle it. For the leg armor or shin protector, I found this small size paper cup that seems perfect for this component. So I split it down from the top and attached them to the leg. I didn't want to make the arm piece too complicated, so to make it simple, I just used wooden chopstick to join them two together from the arm or power fist to the shoulder. For the rear component, I basically took what the source material shows and make my own interpretation out of it. As for the internals, where you can see kind of the remnants of how the sausage is made, so to speak, I decided to make of a somewhat simple design and go with a single pilot seat instead of a schematics that I've seen online. Since physical animation requires a strong frame, I built something that suits that requirement. And on the subject of framing, I've also attached this leftover little stick from the wooden chopstick that you get in takeout and make it a part of the design. This is because I use these crocodile clippers to rig puppets for animation. That aside, the thing about making puppets that articulate myself is that I have to get between the loose and tightness right for the moving parts. I got the balance right on one side but not the other, which is somewhat disappointing. It's fixable, but it would take more time. And between the weight of the appendages, which is on the heavy side, along with the size of the puppet itself, plus the design of 40K's Dreadnought, it proved to be a challenge. I still could animate with it, of course, but it would take more patience and time to troubleshoot. Now, since I already made a pilot seat for the Dreadnought, it's time to make the pilot itself. For this, I'll use the polymer clay. I start with the upper torso, making it somewhat into scale based on the images that I found online. And after making the rest of the component, it's time to make the head, which also includes the face. I did my best making it look somewhat symmetrical, and with no experience in face sculpting, I just tried to shape it as best as I could and got this. The general idea is to start with a skull face, which kind of looks like a Spartan helmet, and then into a zombie, and then filling it up and make somewhat of a face. On the subject of face, I've also made a face respirator mask that isn't exactly connected to anything, but no one besides us has to know about that. Now that we have that, it's time to resin cast it so we have a skin tone pigment. And one more thing. I've used the remainder polymer clay to give this guy a monocle or an eyepiece, because why the heck not? And after my attempt to paint it, I guess it looks good enough, plain and ugly, which is the extent of my painting skill. Look, this isn't a model painting channel. You know what you're signing up for. I've also asked you guys to give him a name in the community post. Gamebird Gamer says, Comb Face the Cybuff. Is it Chrome Face the Cybuff? Because, you know, he has a chrome face mask.
Cybron the Cyber Psycho.
He's alive, by the way. Will you make a tutorial on how to make mask rigs? Maybe one day. Bane going through withdrawals. True, so true. Bootbot 2000. Is it because of the large bust? You guys can decide which name fits best down in the comment section. And that's basically how this 1/12 scale Dreadnought is made. Now, before we get into the animation, kindly drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it and a sub if you haven't yet. Now, for the Dreadnought animation. Hey, thanks for watching. I know upload on the channel has been scarce. There's a lot going on my end, but I'm still working on the next video as I'm finishing this one. So I really appreciate you watching, and if you're looking for something else to watch on the channel, here's another animation. Or the last video, which is props making, that is kind of a practice for this one. And as always, take care, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.